Okay, so I am live. Hello, welcome to another episode of, I was going to say Book Journey Mentor Uncut, which was my old show, Between the Covers. If you're watching for the first time, my name is Daniela Blechner, author, book journey mentor, founder of a company called Conscious Dreams Publishing. We work with authors from all over the world to help them to get their powerful messages and stories out there in the form of professional books. On the bookshelf behind me here are just some of the 140 plus books that we have published over the last 5 to 6 years. I'm absolutely passionate about providing a platform for unseen, unheard authors so they can have their voices heard and stories shared so they can inspire, educate, and empower for generations to come. So if you haven't watched this show before, it's called Between the Covers. Why is it named so? Because I'm really interested in showing to you or exposing to you what really goes on, hi there, Dawn, between the covers of creating a book. So we could pull off a book from the bookshelf from here, for example, and appreciate its beauty and read it and enjoy it, put it down and maybe speak about it for a few weeks or months, or maybe not at all. And that's the end of it. But a lot of people just have no concept of what it takes actually to create a book, from manuscript to publication, to getting it online, to distribution, to promoting, the interviews, everything that goes behind it. So I really want to shed a light on that whole experience and give authors an opportunity to share their journey. It's also a platform for people within the publishing industry to talk about what they do and give you a bit of insight into the publishing process. So today, before I introduce my lovely guest, if you find this of value and worth, please do send this out, show us some love, tap the screen, show us some hearts, share this in your network. It'll be much, much appreciated. So I have some extra exciting news to announce. If you haven't seen already, I am doing my first Writers' Weekend in person. I used to do a workshop, a 3-week workshop called The Power of Your Story, that looks at the different aspects of writing, publishing, and marketing. But this book is aimed at specifically writers who are halfway through their book and stuck. It could be a sci-fi novel you're writing, or it could be even a romantic novel, or it could be a non-fiction piece. Perhaps you're an entrepreneur and the last piece to your puzzle is creating a book that's really going to enable you to share your expertise, and you're writing your book as part of your marketing plan, but something is stopping you from moving you forward and you don't know why. So this workshop will really help you to break down what those blocks are, to help you to get a really clear structure on moving forward, a clear structure for your book. The main mistake I find that authors make when writing their book is not having a structure. So they can start writing, get really into it, go away, come back, and they've realized they've gone off on a tangent. They haven't got a script to stick to. They don't know where they're going. So this is really about helping you to get that really aligned and written down so it's really clear. The workshop is also for those who maybe you don't want to self-publish, maybe you want to go the traditional route. So it's to help you to really get agent ready. So that's creating a submission pack. Do you have your query letter? Do you know what goes into your query letter? What makes an effective query letter? Are you able to condense your book into a 500-word synopsis? We can help you do that. What are your first 3 chapters like? Have you got what you need in those first 3 chapters? Because agents only look at the first 3 chapters when you're submitting your manuscripts. So it's really about helping you with your individual plan, whether it's self-publishing, whether it's going to a hybrid publisher like myself, or going to a traditional publisher, or getting an agent. So this workshop is specifically for those who want to learn the different routes of publishing, and for those who really want to be part of a community of other writers where you can compare chapters. And what I haven't said is the location is absolutely beautiful. It's literally in the midst of a forest, and absolutely there, Destiny, absolutely gorgeous location. You have a conservatory, you have acres of forest land you can walk through. We're going to give you time to actually continue to write your book or work on specific chapters in your book. Everyone will have so it's not a lecture. This is for you to actually book off time to actually write your book as well. Hello there. What I haven't said as well is my sister, who is a holistic health coach, whose book is also on my shelf here, Self-Care. There you go. On Facebook, it's there. On Instagram, it's here. Self-care for life in the city. She's got 25 plus years of experience of being a holistic health coach. She's going to be running a transformational breath session to help you to release your blocks and get into flow with your creativity. So I'm just so excited for the whole weekend. Information, I'm going to put it in the comments. It's also on my social media as well. If you have any questions, do let me know. So without any further ado, I'm going to introduce my awesome and amazing guest. His name is Nick Wells. I met Nick at the London Book Fair this year, actually, and I was absolutely drawn. Myself and my partner were absolutely drawn to his stand because it just was so aesthetically, it was different from any others. It was just beautiful, and I'll let him tell you a bit more about that. So Nick Wells is a publisher, artist, writer, musician, blogger, podcaster, father, world citizen, and one of my favorite people that I met at London Book Fair. As the founder and director of Flame Tree Publishing, Nick is responsible for sourcing fresh talent and creating a wide range of beautiful products, from books to calendars to decorated journals. Working hard to encourage writers and artists at all stages of their careers from all walks of life, Flame Tree has expanded their reach to develop deeper connections with underrepresented communities, seeking stories and art which alter the gaze of history to reflect a vibrant, inclusive and diverse world, which is where our worlds meet and our missions meet as well. When not at Flame Tree Publishing, Nick is a creator and narrator of These Fantastic World podcast series featuring rare and unheard stories from all over the world. He is also a musician, author of 60 books, and most importantly, actively campaigns against any form of elitism, bigotry, and discrimination. Don't we just love Nick? I think we do. So I'm going to invite Nick into the broadcast now. We've got lots of people on who are excited to hear. So Nick is the founder of Flame Tree Press. He does many other things. He's a podcaster, blogger, musician, author himself. But let's say hello. He's one of my favorite people that I met at London Book Fair this year. Your stand was absolutely fabulous and it pulled us in. So can you just talk us through why I thought your stand was so amazing, and tell us about those books on your bookshelf? They look phenomenal.
Yes, well, we've got an amazing array, as you see, of different kinds of books. Some of them are in front of me as well, so that makes it slightly easier. These are short story collections, 480 pages, but we also have lots of beautiful journals in lots of different beautiful designs. But the key thing about what we do really is that we try to make beautiful, desirable objects in terms of books and in journals and even calendars and things like that, but which also have further value, that they last a long time, or they're practical. So our journals are beautiful and practical. Of course, our books, you buy it because it's beautiful, hopefully, but if it has, you can read it at any time over the next 1 to 25 years. It can lie there, can look beautiful, but you can also dip in and out of the short stories. But what we're also really trying to do right across the program is to try and encourage new writers, new illustrators, and really spread beyond the normal well-trodden paths of publishing. Because although we are a publisher in a traditional sense, we're not really like a traditional publisher. We have a lot of very good engagement with our consumers, our readers, perhaps more so even than the trade. Because for us, what really matters is that we're connecting with people to see what they really would like to read, while also providing a market to readers, for writers, both in our newsletters and in our short story collections, but also in our novel forms for speculative fiction in Flame Tree Press, which is science fiction, horror, supernatural, fantasy, and crime and mystery. So we're really trying to make things.
These are your main genres, aren't they?
Yes. In terms of fiction, they are. Yes. So broadly speaking, it's speculative, but we do a lot of mythology, because in terms of how we think about things, the mythology, which in some cultures are very much sort of set in stone, but in other cultures are like living traditions. But those mythologies can be read as tales. Mythology in older times, generally written down from oral storytelling and so on, are very much relate to how people saw the world. And as time has gone on, of course, we learn more about the world, but we're still trying to navigate through the world. And a lot of the stories that we try to tell are the stories of outsiders, Try to reverse the gaze, not so much from the conqueror, but the conquered, and to look at things in a different way. So we have these thematic short story collections, which is right behind me, on a whole range of different subjects. And we've got 2 new ones coming next year, early next year.
Oh, before we go into those ones, which I really do want to talk about, can you talk us through? So we got African Myths here, and we also got the Black Sci-Fi, which I can see on your bookshelf, which Nick kindly gave us at the end of London Book Fair. But where do you get your stories from, and what other, alongside African Myths, can you tell us the other short story books that you have that have already come out?
So, yeah. So generally speaking, we have 2 very specific routes. We try to mix classic tales with completely new writers. So most of the books in the short story collections, these are from open submissions online. We have a submissions window generally of about a month, where we get anywhere between 90 to 5,000 entries.
Wow.
And every story gets read at least twice. We do as much of a blind read as we can, so that we judge on the quality of the story rather than who we think it might be. And that's it's an important part of the offer. But what we're trying to create is a really good book which represents the theme. So what you'll find is that you might find a completely new writer or an emerging writer, or sitting next to someone who's been writing for a while, sitting next to a classic author like H.G. Wells or H.P. Lovecraft. And that mix is very, very important, because people like the familiar, and that allows them to think that maybe if another writer, a modern writer, appears in a book like that, then it must be good or interesting at least. And so that's part of the dynamic of it, really.
But it's also great as well, because it really, having those 2 different perspectives or the time frames in one book really kind of shows the difference, the similarities between the time and thinking and people as well. Who wouldn't want to be beside authors like H.G. Wells?
Well, it's part of the concept is very much, often people who write, they write in their own, upstairs, out of the way of everybody else, in the nature of these things.
Yeah.
Or even if they're writing in their living room, surrounded by a noisy group of people or a family, they're within their heads and trying to do it. And sometimes they don't particularly want to share the stories because they don't think their family or their friends will like it. But they will love a book that looks like that, and they will be impressed when their biography appears right next to a classic writer. There are a lot of things going on in something like this, but ultimately, the process of encouraging a writer is not just actually even just publication, but it's going through the motions of applying, putting your mind to the task of writing, perfecting, and often there are a lot of short story markets around the world, and we publish our books globally, and there are a lot of short story markets, but it does mean there are always opportunities for lots of people to enter. But what we've really found is that not everybody knows that.
Yeah.
So I talked about the well-trodden path earlier. We do not get enough Black or Asian writers, Latino writers, into our collections, and so we're making a conscious effort to reach out to broader communities and go to places where. Try to find places where people who are writing but don't know what to do with it.
Yeah, well, exactly. And one of the things that really drew us in as well was that you had the Asian ghost stories. You had, was it First Peoples?
Yeah, we've got First Peoples coming up this autumn. Yep.
Yeah.
And immigrant sci-fi coming next March, April.
It's just brilliant, and it's fascinating to me, because when you see some of these things and you see a lot of these traditional publishing companies that are using, I talk about this a lot, diversity, jumping on the bandwagon, using this sort of as a trend. It doesn't mean it has to be about necessarily Black themed or Asian themed. I love the fact that you're publishing books written by immigrants about sci-fi, completely different, and it's I think it's just wonderful. Can you tell us, and those who are watching as well know that we recently did some work in the studio for some audiobooks, which we can talk about now, actually, and then I'd like to move on to the opportunity. That'd be great. So can you tell us a little bit about these fantastic worlds and the work that we did in Kingship Studio a few months ago? last month.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, it was a really good project. But particularly from my point of view, it brought to life a lot of the stories which we've put into a number of different series. So we have these sort of paperback books, Scottish myths, Indian myths, Polynesian islands, East African folk tales, West African folk tales, African myths, as well as all the obvious Norse myths and Greek myths and Celtic myths, which everybody knows about. But what people don't really hear when they're at school or on the television very much is really the other myths from the greater part of the world, which is the continent of Africa, where, of course, we all came from, and South Asia as well. And I read my own stories. I've read Norse myths, but of course, really, I wanted to find the correct voices to read the Indian myths and the African myths, because it's not right for me to read them. And it's one of the reasons I'm working with Danni, is that we can have a proper conversation about that and find the right readers. And so we went into the studio, and we've organized and now recorded, and I've just received African Myths last night, actually, 10 episodes, each of which will be released on the podcast over a period of 10 weeks. But I'm going to be making a single audiobook as well for Indian and for audio, so that we reach a broader market as well. Because with the internet generation, people want to hear different voices. If you come from a culture which is not my color, you want to hear voices which are similar to your own,
authentically told by the people. That's right.
Yeah.
I mean, I love working on that project with you, looking for Black and Asian voices or people to read the stories. So I just want to give a shout out at this moment to S.A., who I used to go to college with, who read the African Myths tales, and Nina Singh, who we found as well, who did the Indian myths. And they're going to be coming out on your podcast, These Fantastic Worlds, and audiobook. Where is this going to be on Audible, or are you going to have it on many different platforms as well?
Well, I'll be honest with you. The trouble with audio, you can't do without Audible, because it's 90% of the market.
Yeah.
And so most people try to go exclusive with Audible, and that's because you get 40% of the income.
Yeah.
If you go non-exclusive, you go 20%. But that is what we do. We go for the non-exclusive because we want our audiobooks to be in libraries. I want to be able to put them on our own platforms. I want them to be on Spotify. So when we do them, they will be everywhere. And I want to be able to do more of these. And it'll just be a 2-hour audio, but that's perfect for a whole series of small journeys. Each myth is really only 10, 12, 15 minutes, depending on which one it is. And that's fantastic, just walking around, not having to get too enveloped in it all. But yes, they will be available everywhere.
Okay, and it's These Fantastic Worlds, which you can access on Spotify and all other platforms that advertise podcast series. So brilliant. Let's talk about this opportunity, because someone said nice cover. Yes, they're absolutely beautiful. Let's talk about these 2 anthologies that you're currently working on, and okay, awesome, that you're currently working on, and this opportunity for short story writers. If you could tell us some more information, that would be fantastic.
Okay, so generally speaking, we announce these kind of short stories in 2s, and we have a month for open submissions. We announce it on the internet. There are lots of short story websites like Duotrope. We put them out on social media and so on. But as I said, we don't get enough of a broad reach, really. So this is an attempt to broaden that reach. But so we have two new books, one called Hidden Realms and another one called Alternate History. So one is science fiction, sort of near fiction, but it could be anything from ancient civilization to science fiction, which is the alternate history. So I'll talk about that one first. And of course, as it's fairly obvious, but what if Egypt conquered Rome, not Rome conquered Egypt? Philip K. Dick has written fairly extensively, and Robert Harris, about World War II turning out in a different way. But really, if you think of any victorious civilization over the last 4,000 years and turn it on its head, what would happen? So you can speculate in the future by doing that, because of course once you've established that something different happened at a certain point in time, a big decision, a different president of America, there was no slavery, women ruled the world
Rule
for
the
4,000
world.
years, not men.
It's
What
coming.
when you establish that, what will happen in the next 4,000 years? So there's a lot of scope for in these kinds of stories. Which just makes it really very exciting. And so at the moment, I am looking at notes because I can't quite remember. There was
What's the word count for that? Because there's so much. I mean, with that short story, you could go really deep into that, couldn't you, with the alternate histories? So just give us a sort of practical submission terms. What's the word count, and how should people submit?
Okay, so through you, is in this particular context, we're really talking about, let's say, between 1,000 and 2,000 words. We accept stories between 2 to 5,000 words, but the sweet spot really is 1,500 to 3,000 words. And of course, these are short stories in speculative fiction. So you've got to start well. Your first paragraph has got to be fantastic, and the ending has got to make sense. So a lot of more literary short stories are a little bit are more open-ended, and of course they tend to ask other questions. But in a short story for this kind of collection, you really need a strong single idea, which goes straight in and really grabs the reader, and to try and establish the concept and the world in a very short space of time, which requires some skill, but sometimes having a very, very strong idea in itself it brings along, you can't over describe characters, you can't over describe location, but a good strong idea is very important.
So I'm going to be reading these. We're going to be assessing them and deciding which one to go through. So I've got a big job, because I think we're going to have lots of amazing stories come through. So what advice would you give writers, apart from, that was great, making sure you hit them with the first paragraph and making sure you've got the powerful idea? What makes a powerful short story? Because I have a lot of writers who write 50,000 word novels, but they're getting a bit uncertain as to how they can condense that into a short story.
Oh, they are very different from each other as creatures, a short story and a novel. I mean, with a novel, you've got much more time to establish what's going on. There are many different ways of starting a novel, and the use of language becomes very, very important. So you can have very simple language, which says a lot about the nature of the story, and you can build. But in a short speculative story, as I said, you've got a very strong idea, and preferably strong characters. But you've got to find a way of being economical in your language. So generally speaking, good advice would always be to reduce the number of adjectives and adverbs in a story. Sometimes that's
one of my pet things. I've been told by editors I use 2 words where I could just use one adjective, no need to, simple is best.
Yeah, exactly. And in some ways, some people think of short stories as a form of poetry.
Yes,
and I think that's going a bit too far, but it does help you think about it, because poetry is much more of a distillation of an idea, and it's a suggestion of an idea, so that you've got to have a mindset really to do good short stories. There are people who make a living out of writing short stories. As I said to you earlier, there are lots of markets worldwide, lots of magazines online and in print, and lots of anthologies who accept short stories. So sometimes we accept a reprint in our collections, so it doesn't have to be completely original. We pay slightly different rates, but not massively. Some people write for our anthologies, it is that strong single idea. But I would always start with a good first sentence, something that's intriguing, something that pulls the reader in. You've really got to think, and that how someone else is going to read the story. So you can build tension in the first word, something incongruous, something unexpected, or something really joyful and delightful. I mean, a lot of successful short stories have a sense of wonder about them.
And are we looking for? I've got a few things here. We've got Leah on, who is a poet, so I love the fact, and she was actually one of our authors who said she finds it difficult to write short stories, an English teacher as well. So I mean, that's really a great way to look at it, to think of it like poetry. You've got one single idea that you're condensing into a small period of time. But I was going to ask you, She's also got a question here about the hidden realms, but I had a question and it's completely gone from my memory because I've got another question over here as well. It will come back to me. So
shall I talk about hidden realms a little bit?
Of course you can. What about hidden realms? Tell us.
Yeah. So I meant to go on to that after alternate history. There isn't too much to say because to some extent it's fairly obvious. But what we're really looking for it's the hidden realm. It's the hollow within the tree. It's the darkness at the end of the corridor. It's what's behind the door. It's what's behind the secret garden. It's really a fantasy concept as opposed to a science fiction concept. It's what's underground. So Alice in Wonderland is a hidden realm story. There are hidden realms in Ethiopia and Harar. So hidden realms per se are always very, very interesting. Gawain and the Green Knight, which is a fantastic movie of the medieval Celtic tale, is really about sort of self-discovery and chivalry and various other things. But there is this massive element of going into a deep, deep wood and finding the Green Man. And that was an unexpected thing. You didn't really quite know that was what's really going to happen. So hidden realms, it can be a secret. It can be an everyday secret which has a universal truth. That's always a good way actually to make a short story work. But so those kinds of themes would work.
That's a tweet moment. It's an everyday. Say that again. An everyday occurrence with a universal truth. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Love that. Okay. Oh, Leah says she's properly tempted now. Oh, go ahead. So I've remembered my question. Is there a specific target audience here? And also thinking about sort of mood and tone, especially when we're talking about alternate histories. Are you looking for sort of like dystopian, worst possible case scenario, or are we looking at something maybe a bit more quirky or joyful? Is there anything particular?
Well, so in terms of the way we tend to do things, if they're joyful and not quirky so much, but if they're joyful and let's say positive, they tend to be more fantasy orientated.
Yeah.
Unless they're grimdark, which is another story. Whereas science fiction tends to be, but not always, just a little bit grittier, a little tougher, maybe yes, more dystopian. But so we would make there is a distinction there, perhaps, that alternate history has more roots firmly within the real world, whereas hidden realms can be completely different. It doesn't have to be humans. I'm not suggesting elves in particular, but they could be jaguar people. I mean, there are all sorts of other things. Most of the myths from, or at least the folktales from Africa, are animal myths, animal tales.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
And so there are lots of ways into these two different things. But yeah, so there is a clear. So when we do these open submissions, we tend to have, let's say, a horror book and a crime book, or a fantasy book and a science fiction book. This happens to be those two different things.
Okay, and the sort of target audience is obviously, I'm feeling it's adults, isn't it? Is a
yes,
yeah,
yes. Although I'm always slightly wary about that, because I don't really like the young adult label myself. Because when I was younger, I read Robert Heinlein when I was 11. Because they were great stories.
Exactly.
And Lord of the Rings when I was about 11 as well. You know, when you read a great story, it grips you at any age, really. And I think the only difference is the size of the font on the page. So in theory, it's really for people who are interested in the mysterious and the magical, and the different and the other. And they tend to be adults. You know, there is a classification from a book point of view in markets which would suggest that this is really more of an adult. But well, what's an adult these days if you can sign up for Instagram at 13?
Oh, no, we'll have to talk about that offline. That's another thing. No, you raise a really good point, because I was reading all sorts of literature when I was young. I didn't really have that distinction between the two, and certainly as a teacher as well, I see young people read books from the Diary of a Wimpy Kid. Don't get me started on that. Nothing wrong with it, but I've just seen way too many. It feels like everyone's reading that series at the moment. From Diary of the Wimpy Kid to, I remember seeing a year 7 reading War and Peace. You know, a thick book. So I totally hear you and agree with you on that one. Leah says, I studied Gawain and the Green Knight for dissertation. I think you meant to write. Okay, lovely. I think you definitely need to get on with that, Leah. So if you're watching this and you feel like this is a great opportunity, if you know that there's any writers out there, perhaps you have a community of writers. I mean, this is for everyone. And we especially want to hear from authors who are marginalized or underrepresented, especially as as Nick says, a lot of the entries and submissions are coming from the same kinds of people. So we encourage everybody to who wants to write, everyone from all walks of life to submit to this. And you can submit through, I'm going to put my email in the comments. Trying to remember which one I put. I think it was authors@consciousdreamspublishing.com. Are there any other terms and conditions that they need to be aware of? And there was one person asking if there's an NDA. I mean, I'm happy to sign an NDA for those who apply, but I mean, is there a standard procedure with that?
Do you mean, well, so I think that's a fear of copyright theft. Is that what's coming? Okay. And I remember this issue coming up quite a lot when we first started up, and also when I was younger. The reality is a publisher is not going to steal your idea.
Oh, no.
In order to publish it, we will issue a license to do so. So you retain the copyright. It's your story, and we will only use that story in the context of this particular book. If your story doesn't quite make it, then we don't keep it on file and try and use it somewhere else. And that's one, we are a proper publisher, and we respect our readers and our writers, because if you don't make it this time round, we hope you'll try again, and we want to encourage you to do that. So generally speaking, we don't do NDAs because that's not really the game we're in, partly because there are so many people who apply. And in this context,
it's a paid opportunity as well, isn't it? So it's in their interest to be published.
Yes, yeah, exactly. So we pay by the word, which is why we put limits on the story. So, but and we've allocated a number of slots to come from this route, from Danni's route, to make sure that there's a kind of fair representation. But obviously, we are looking for good stories.
Yeah. 100%. So if you do submit to me, if it's a good story, and I'm sure it's going to be, at least how many are you looking for through my?
Well, we will publish between 16 and 20 in total from open submissions, plus 4 from you. But being honest, if we have 27 stories that we want to publish, we will do that. So we have to be flexible, because sometimes people write 2,000 words, some write 5,000 or 6,000 words. We want a really good book which represents the thing. Yeah. Okay.
Who feels ready to submit? When's the closing date? It's the big question.
Yes. Well, if you look on our website, you'll see a frighteningly soon date. But we're extending that to the end of this month for this particular route, in order to give people time. And I would emphasize, I mean, if it's a 2,000 word story, if you have a good idea, you could write that within a week, if you have the time, obviously. But don't start writing until you're ready to start writing.
Yeah.
But if you have a good short story that you've already written, then have a look at that and polish that up as well. There are so many different ways of approaching something like this. But if I'm writing short stories, I tend to have a notebook. Good thing, because we publish them, but I have lots of notebooks, and I have my phone. I use software to write lots of ideas down, and I don't look at them until I'm ready. And I sit down at my desk, my studio at home, and I look through all the ideas, and then I go away and think. And then I come back probably the next day and I start writing. And the discipline of writing is very, very important. But the thinking, in order to have the discipline, is also important. So it's possible to do this in the time, assuming you have the time. It can be done in the evenings, it can be done at the weekend, before you go to work. So lots of different ways of achieving it.
I mean, in your bio, you've written 60 books, right? Is that correct?
Well, so within that, there's a lot of non-fiction. I've edited a lot of books, and I've written a lot of music books as well. Right. But I've written fiction and sort of science fiction, fantasy, and a lot of short stories. So yes, I've got a broad range of experience. But I read all the time. I may read hundreds of stories all week, all day, all night.
And do you have exactly? I was going to ask you. Do you have a favourite time that you like to write? Because some people have their routines. I'm very sporadic in my writing, I think.
In terms of writing, it's every Saturday morning and Sunday morning. For me, that's because it's like stolen time. I can do it before anybody else gets up, or because let's face it, it's the weekend, so some people get up later. But as the sun comes up, I can put some music on, and I use music as a cocoon. It shuts out all the other sounds, and then I just spend the time doing it, maximum 2 hours, no more, and that's it. And that's my writing time.
That's amazing, and you do that religiously every Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah.
Wow, I feel so lazy. I need to take.
Well, it doesn't mean it's good.
Doesn't matter. It's a discipline of writing, isn't it? Of getting up at a certain time and getting used to writing and tapping into that creative flow. And the more you do it, the easier it gets, I think. What do you love about writing in this whole process, and in fact, everything that you do?
Well, I feel very fortunate because I'm doing what I love doing, which is I'm involved in ideas, the joy of expression, really, and in the sense, I'm a creative person, but I have sort of it's my mental life which matters to me rather than my physical life. It's frustrating for others. So I've always got something going on, and it's just I am fortunate enough to be able to use that in my working life. I did have a job many years ago, and I left in order to set this up. In order to do it, you don't start a publishing company in order to get rich. Believe me. But I love the written word and written word as a manifestation of ideas. I love meeting different people, different cultures. Any form of any creative person. And as a creative person can be a mathematician or a physicist because the beauty of maths and particularly particle physics is also part of the same kind of thing that I'm certainly interested in, and lots of people are. But it is about expression, really. And I'm very keen now. I'm a bit older, and I know I've been fortunate. I'm very keen to be able to help more people to do more things themselves. And so I'm trying to do more and more of that. And we've got some writing contests and poetry slams, which we're going to do next year, which are part of that, really, because some people don't know. Some people sit at the end of the classroom and don't speak to anybody, but actually they've got a lot going on in their heads.
Yes.
And writing is a way out of that. Painting is a way out of that. Music is a way out of that. We all need a form of expression, and we need those avenues to see that it is possible. And we need our models. We need our role models. We've got to find ways of providing that.
100%. I resonate with so much of what you say. I was one of the kids in the back of the classroom with the ideas buzzing around my head and creating. I've still got them. Books I used to stick together with glue and paper and writing my own ISBNs, and it's just beautiful to be able to have conversations with different people from all walks of life who are into creative expression.
The other night, a couple of weeks ago, I was in the studio with your friends, Peaches and
big up
Prophecy.
Peaches, Kinship Studio and Prophecy.
And we spent 6 hours listening to an album project of Peaches.
Oh wow!
And it was absolutely fantastic because I just felt at home with these people. We were listening to music, which was a combination of spoken word and rap and melody, singers. And there are times in my life when I know I can't speak, that I tell people that I'm interested in all that, and the things that I think in my own head, I worry that there are other people in the room who think I'm going to be completely mad. But then you find yourself in a room of people who just not only don't think you're mad, you just get on and just talk about it because you can move it forward. And for me, publishing is like that. You're giving the opportunity for people who have got who can express themselves, want to express themselves, giving the other man an avenue. To find your own tribe, it can take a long time, but to help people do that is a wonderful thing, I think.
One of the things I absolutely love about Nick is like his passion and just your integrity in what you do, your integrity and your wanting desire to give a platform to underrepresented authors, very similar to myself, but your genuine interest in people and your authenticity, which is what makes me really excited about working with you and everything that you're doing. And just looking at those, I'm a nerd in terms of ideas, creative expression, books, how things look. Your bookshelf is beautiful. Look at my cup. I tried to get many different writing cups, and this is the nearest cup I could find to your bookshelf. Do you like it?
Oh, fantastic. Yes, look. So, and that one.
Oh, here you go.
Yep, close enough.
We should get a picture.
Yep. got that one as well.
Oh wow! I love art like that. So we can talk all day. We're gonna have a cut-off time. I've got a couple of questions here or comments. Leah says Thursday nights in the bar to the piano. That's where she usually writes, and occasionally weekends. Awesome. She says she runs a writing for well-being workshop at school to write for fun. Staff and sixth formers to aid that. Exactly, and we need more things like this. We need more avenues for young people and adults to express themselves, whether it's going to become published or not. I think it's so important.
I think that is right, though. Not just you don't have to be published to be validated.
Exactly. That's another tweet moment. Yeshiba, another author says, "Is it best to write a project in a structured time or sporadically till it's done?" Or is it all to do with individual? Oh, okay.
Well, I think ultimately we're all different, aren't we? And therefore we all have different lives and different personalities. So I think it's kind to yourself to try different things. I think I don't like to overstructure my actual writing. I like to have an overarching. I like to know where I'm going broadly, but I'd like serendipity to take over. But I think discipline in sitting down at a certain time is helpful in our busy lives because it's so easy to get distracted. I think there is a danger that if you kind of find little tiny bits here and there, that you end up doing the priorities in your life. And so I was talking about finding little credit card spaces in life. It's much better to write for 10 minutes a day or 5 minutes a day every day than not quite find the right time. So I think it's just a helpful way into it, and ultimately everybody is different, so we find our own ways.
I think that's great advice. Find your way. A lot of people beat themselves up. You know, they might hear you saying structured time and think, well, why am I not doing this? And it's finding those pockets of time. Like you say, credit card moments of time. I say those pockets of time that you don't realize are free, but they're there. You know, we can all find them somewhere. So how can people connect with you? If they're submitting a short story, you can come through me. I'll put my email in the chat and also post. But where can people connect with you to find out more about what you do in terms of publishing?
Well, we our main trading website is flametreepublishing.com. We have a blog which is blog.flametreepublishing.com, and that's where we tend to put submission windows for the short stories and also articles on writers and artists and so on. So it's possibly a good idea to have a little look there. But in the end, flametreepublishing.com tends to be our first port of call.
Fabulous. Okay, I've just highlighted that. And then for those who want to submit a short story, please take note of my email. There it is. authors@Conscious Dreams Publishing. And please, because we get so many emails, can you please put in the subject header what it's going to be? Is it Hidden Realms, capital letters, Hidden Realms submission, or alternate history submission? Please for it to go through speedily. So the closing date is the end of this month, so that's the 31st of July. You've got a good 3 weeks there, and pockets of time to have your thinking time as well. Any last tips or any last words from you, Nick?
No, I'm not sure how many. Not a real tip, but I think what I'm keen to do is to be involved in an uplifting process, a positive process, and I think that's what writing really is. We can use our writing as a way of lifting ourselves above whatever it is going on in the everyday, and writing is a way out, and is a way of expressing, and I think we should use that.
You're speaking my heart. I love it. I think on that note, we can end. So thank you, everybody, for joining. You have all the information. You can connect with Nick. You can connect with myself. If you have any questions in regards to the process. If you have any questions about Flame Tree Publishing, just go over to the website and connect with Nick there. Thank you, everyone, so much for joining. Next week, please join us for an interview with the awesome and amazing Melissa Martin, who is the author of My Mirror, My Reflection, My Depression. We've been working on this for such a long period of time, and it's now ready. So it's going to be out on the 24th of July. It's her life story. And you're gonna have to tune in to find out what it's about. Actually, it's on pre-order now, and I think she's listening. So please do join us 7 p.m. GMT, 2 p.m. EST on Wednesday. Nick, I have a feeling you want to say something.
No, I was just trying to say goodbye.
Oh, okay, great. Nick, thank you so much
and
for
goodbye.
joining us. I have been Daniela Blechner, speaking to the awesome and amazing. You just got
Nick
to say
Wells.
your name.
Nick Wells.
There you go. All right. See you later, everybody.
Thank
See you
you.
next week. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.